Okay, so again, thank you for joining us. This is, as Olivia said, our second presentation regarding data capture and document capture. The first one that we did a couple weeks ago really focused on taking your existing forms and trying to make them electronically fillable. So you wouldn't create paper or electronic forms anymore. You would actually fill out the forms, and it would all be captured as you filled it out. What we're going to talk about today is the documents and forms that you receive in that you really can't control that way, and so that we need to find a way to better get the data from them as you receive them.
Oh, it's moving.
So everyone could hit *6, please, on their phone. That will make sure that we don't get any interference in the background, okay? Thank you. So what we're going to talk today about, is the business challenge of, as all of you probably face, is, how do we do more with less? In our part of the document of the business world, how do we handle the influx of not only paper documents, but electronically submitted documents? I have conversations all the time with customers and people, and they say, well, we're getting a lot more electronic. And I think they are. You are receiving probably a lot more documents today that are already in electronic format, whether they be a PDF or a Word or something coming to you. But you still have to get data off of those documents into your systems to be processed. So while you may be getting it in electronic format, you still have to do manual data entry to it. So there's a lot more documents being processed in today's world than ever. And while they may not be in paper, they're still coming to you nevertheless. How can I reduce the time we spend doing manual data entry? It's a timely and costly endeavor. How can we make our data entry more accurate? How do we eliminate the errors that we're having? How do we do it faster so we can get our discounts or possibly avoid some types of penalties? And how are we meeting compliance? As regulation continues to grow in nearly every industry that we work with, this is becoming more and more important factor in what we're trying to do. So these are some of the things that we know that our customers are facing on a daily basis. And one of the ways we can help you is to try to come up with a solution here that will help you speed up all of those processes, better documents, better data, and those types of things. So we're going to do that by taking the documents and reading the data from them as we receive them in. So really they're we take documents, we kind of categorize them in three different ones. So the first is the fixed form. And all of us have seen these. These are where, where every piece of data is going to be on that form as you receive it. Again, folks, I think I hear some background noise. If you could hit *6 on your phone. Thank you. So we do have, where we know that a certain piece of data is going to be a specific spot on the form. These are surveys, these are enrollment forms, questionnaires, claim forms. These are things that all of us have seen, and we can do this pretty well, whether it's printed type or if it's handwritten. And this is something we've been able to do for a number of years. So everyone kind of has forms in this area that we can help you with in getting that data from them. The second area is really where I think the most advancement has been made in the last 2 or 3 years, and that is a semi-structured document. So in a semi-structured document, we still kind of know what data is on that document, but we don't necessarily know where it's going to be. So with the technology that we have now, we can actually teach the document to look for keywords on these unstructured or semi-structured documents and find out where it says invoice number or bill to or claim number, whatever it might be. And then we look for the actual data around that particular key that we're looking for. So this now allows us to do a much wider variety of documents that we can capture all the data from. And that's things like invoices and bills of lading, POs, in the medical field, EOBs, and some of those types of things. So this is really where the great strides have been made. And then the final type of documents that we can help you with are really kind of unstructured. These are documents that you're getting in, typically things like letters, correspondence, and you're really not sure what you're looking for. But we have been able to do things with it where we can look at a contract or a letter and we can say, oh, let's find out where this letter came from. Let's find out who this letter was sent to. Let's find key phrases within this letter that may help us better understand how we need to route it through our document process. So these are kind of the three types of documents that we can help you with and improve your data entry time, speed it up, eliminate a lot of the cost around it. So our solution is through one of our vendor partners, Abby. Abby was founded in 1989. It's an international company with 1,200 employees. 40 million people use the product, 150 countries. And in this advanced data capture world we live in, they do more than 2 billion pages a year are being processed through their systems where data is being read from documents. Again, around the world with over 5,000 customers. Here are some of Abby's larger clients, and again, you can see it's an international base, including a lot of large companies in the U.S. So Abby's been doing this a long time. They are the leader in the OCR, ICR technology. In fact, their engines that we use to read the text and the characters off of documents is used in the majority of other products on the market today. So other companies take their engine and build the product around it. Here we're going to have their product with their interfaces built through it to give you really the best functioning system available. So I'm going to try to simplify what this does in a quick way here to show you what we're talking about. So you receive into your organization lots of different documents, whether you're scanning them into as PDFs or TIFFs, or you're receiving them in via email or something like that already in an electronic format. So we can take those documents and we can run them through the FlexiCapture system. And in that process of going through the system, we're going to do three things to start. Number one is we're going to look at that document and we're going to classify it to what document type that it is. So now I can eliminate my cover sheets and my separator sheets and things like that, and based on the content of the document, know what type of document that it is. I'm then going to extract the data from that document, the information that you need to enter into your systems. Once that data is extracted, I'm then going to validate that data that it is in the correct format. Maybe I can look out at some databases and make sure that it is good data, meaning that it matches things in my system already. And then I can also validate it for the format of whether or not it's a number or it's an alphanumeric or it's a phone number or things of that nature. So that's really the process. That's what happens in the Abby system. And then once that's done, now I have my documents separated into different document types that I may have had. And I also can see the different pieces of data that I've collected from them. And I can pass that along then to my document management system, my ERP, to a database, or whatever it might be to get processed through your company. So that's kind of a quick overview of what it tries to do. Some of the key features, as we said before, this is the most accurate and best data capture engine on the market, being used by nearly all providers. So we can do a lot of things with very complex and unusual type documents, getting the data from them. Classification routing, we can eliminate those needs for separator sheets, and maybe you're using barcodes with doc types on them, things of that nature. We can streamline that where you don't have to do that type of prep, scan them, and then have them routed into appropriate workflows in your company to get them processed. State-of-the-art OCR, which is typed, ICR, which is handwritten, OMR, OBR, those are check boxes, radio boxes, those kinds of things. Those are the types of things that we can read. We can start from a standalone in a small department and grow up into a robust, large, distributed client-server type of implementation within your whole organization. And we have systems where there are thousands of, there are hundreds of users on the system with thousands and thousands of documents being processed every day. One of the beautiful things about this product is that it is a horizontal product. And what I mean by that is that you can implement this at your company, and you may start out in the accounting department with it and use it for invoices or POs or something like that. But you could also grow that system to your HR department. So now you can start doing onboarding things like W-4s or I-9s or those types of documents. You can also go over to transportation and start doing bills of lading. So one solution can really cross an entire organization with the same initial investment. And then finally is that the product and the way that we use it can be implemented either on your network or in a thin client environment. So you could have remote users, people through the internet actually doing verification, submitting documents, things of that nature. Okay? So this is a map of kind of a flexi capture from a distributed client-server network implementation. And I show you this, again, to really walk you through the steps of the process and kind of show you what each part does. And then we'll break these parts down in a little more detail afterwards. And then during the demonstration, you'll be able to see exactly what they look like in process. So the first, what I'd like you to do is kind of concentrate on the gray boxes that run across the page. And the first one there says System Setup and Monitoring. So really, you have a couple stations where you have the ability to have set up project management stations. We're going to build each project for the different types of documents that you're going to use. And you can have as many of those management project setup stations as you need. You also have a monitoring station. So this gives you the ability for managers to look at the system, see what work is being done, where it's at in the process, how much is left to be done, those types of things. So that you need to be able to monitor your system and what's happening with it. So once I've got my system set up, I have the ability to look at my system and see what's being done as it's running. Let's talk about the different parts of the process. So the first thing is we need to get the documents into the system. So from an input standpoint, we can scan. We have a scan interface. We can bring documents in. We can look at a watch folder where you can have documents scanned in from a MFP machine. It could be coming in from like an eFax or a BrightFax, something like that. We can do mobile capture now. We can set up email addresses where you can send documents as attachments to an email address. The Abby product will go out and pick up those attachments off of it and enter it into the process. So those are all the ways that we can input and get the documents and get them started. So once we get the input, and the next step we go to is recognition. So the recognition part is where we're going to do the text, OCR, and ICR, OMR. We're going to read all the data off the system. We're then going to identify what document type that it is so that we can classify it. And then we're going to extract and validate the data that we've asked it to pick up for us. So all the different fields on the document that we need are going to be pulled at that time and ran against validation of the rules that we've set up for it. So once we've input them, we've run that recognition step, we've created all those things that happen, it's not perfect. And so there are some things that will, there'll be, maybe we're unsure of in the system that's being read, maybe it doesn't meet one of the business rules. And so those types of things are then presented to a human verifier who will get that information, be able to look at the document and look at what the software read or thought it read, and either verify that it is correct or correct it if it needs to be done. So there's that kind of last step there where we have someone who can actually look at it to make sure that what we're doing has been captured correctly. If you have very important fields that are on each of the documents, you can actually force the system to always present that field to a person to look at. So if you've got a policy number, if you've got a social security number, if you've got a customer ID number that are very important, we can always make sure that someone looks at that and that it is correct. So once it's been verified that the data on it is all correct, then it goes off to export. And so when we export the documents out, we send the documents out, we can send data out, maybe 4 or 5 index fields that you want to take onto your document management system, the policy name, the policy number, the date, the document type, those kinds of things, however you want to set up. But we could send the images and that snippets of data off to your document management system. Then we could also at the same time send all of the data that we collected from all the fields on the document over to your workflow system, over to your ERP, over to whatever databases you might want us to put them in. So there's a lot of flexibility in how we can output the data and all the different places that we can put it. So this gives you an idea of the flow and the workflow of the documents that they go through the system. We capture them in input, we recognize them, you have a chance then to verify that the information is correct, and then we export them out to the different places that you want the data and the images sent. Right? So moving to more of a little more granular look at the different segments of that. So here's our capture, our input. As we talked about, this is a scanning station. You can see what the screen looks like. This could be run either on your network, or this could also be run from a thin client, from a remote user or from a regional office, where when they log on to the internet onto this site, it actually will download to that person's scanner the job setups and the settings that you need, and then you can scan the documents and get them into the system from there. We also can import images through the watch folder. As I said, you can set up email addresses, and we can pull attachments from emails as they are sent to that email address. And then we can integrate with all different MFPs that I'm sure most of you have, and grab the documents coming from the MFPs into the system. So the second part of this is classification. And again, most of you are familiar with this. You're doing this in some way today. Either you're batching all of your letters together, and then you're batching all your contracts together, and then you're batching all your invoices, and then you're scanning them separately. Or you're using some kind of separator sheet that has a doc type, maybe it's a barcode on it. So what the classification does is we can eliminate all that sorting, all those cover sheets, barcode sheets, so that now all I have to do is prep it, make sure I've got the staples and things like that out of it, and then I can run it through the system, the scanner, and we're going to separate those things out for you. So let's talk a little bit about what we can read off of a document. So as you can see here, you can print a text, multiple languages. So those of you that have international ties, we can do a number of different languages. We do handprint, which is really important. We get a lot of that, especially like in enrollment and survey and those types of forms. Check mark recognition, barcodes. We can read tables and keep their formats, and we can do what's called repeating groups. So that's the kind of data, those are the kinds of things that we can pull off of the document in the recognition process. But now this is probably the most important and probably the key thing of the system is that we can then validate that data. And that's really important because even if today you're manually entering it, you may or not have these type of validations in place. So the first thing we do is we can validate the data format. So if I'm putting in a phone number, for instance, I know it has to be 334 as the numbers go into it. And if that's not correct, I know I've got an error in what I've read or maybe what was entered in that field. So I can do it for a phone number, I can do it for a social security number, I can do it for a zip code, I can do it for really anything that we can say this is the format that the data needs to be in to match up for what we're trying to capture. The second thing we can do, which is probably the most powerful thing, is that we can take a piece of information that we read and we can validate that against your existing data. So I'm going to use an insurance example here, but this can go for a number of things. But if I read the policy number on a document and I go out to my database to say, okay, does this policy number exist? And if I find that policy number in our database, which is good, that means that it does exist, is the name the same name that I read off of the document? So I could say, here's the policy number, I go to the database, it matches, I read John Smith. And if the database doesn't come back and tell me that, yes, that John Smith does go with that policy, I know that there's a problem somewhere. So that validation ability really makes sure that the data that we do eventually pass along to our systems is complete and accurate. The other thing that we can do is we could take that policy number and bring fields back from the database and auto-fill additional fields into our system. So maybe our document doesn't have the person's name or their address or their agent's name or some other piece of information. When I take the policy number that I read and go to your database and match it, I can say, oh, by the way, bring over this policy's agent name or this policy's issue date or whatever it might be. So there's a lot that could be done from that validation against your existing data. Next thing we can do is we can calculate and verify sums. So if I've got a table, let's take an invoice, for instance, where I've got 5 or 6 line items of things that I've purchased, and they have kind of line totals out to the right, and of course down at the bottom there's a total. I actually can have the system, as it reads those line items, add those up, and if that number doesn't match the number that I read for the total, then I know that there's been an error somewhere along the way. Okay, so those kind of validations really help improve what we're trying to do. Normalization of dates. So if I get a date in that says May 8, 1996, or I get something that says 05/08, 1996, or 08/05, 1996, okay, the system's smart enough to get that all into the same output when I put it, in my export. Okay, so that's the way that you expect to get it into your database. So even if all of those things still don't work, then we have the ability to customize scripts and go do additional things for validation. So this is really one of the most powerful parts of the system. Not only can you save time and money in getting the data captured and entered, but you also are going to have a lot more validation against making sure that you've got the correct data, which is ultimately what we need to do. Okay, so now we've recognized it, we've done all of our checks. Now let's go to the part where these are the things that I'm not sure about or I need you to have somebody look at, and that's the verification process. So there's 2 ways to do verification. The first way is called group verification. So what happens here is it will present to you all at one time all the check boxes. This is what I think was checked. Then maybe after you approve these, it'll say, show me all the check boxes that were unchecked, and you confirm whether that was correct or not. Now give me all the dates, give me all the Social Security numbers, give me all the phone numbers. So in this way, I'm just seeing small snippets of each document, and the verifier is able to look at them and make a correction if needed or verify if it is correct. The beauty here is if I'm capturing confidential data, Social Security numbers, information about payroll, things that I maybe don't want people to see, I can actually break those numbers up so that one person may key the first part of a Social Security number, and the second person would key the second half of the Social Security number. They would never see the whole thing in one place at one time. So from a security standpoint, from HIPAA, from all those things that everybody worries about with people's personal information, I can make it so that my verifiers and people who are doing the entry here would never see all the complete data in any one place. So it's really powerful if you've got a situation that you need help in that to accomplish. Okay, so that's kind of the group or field level verification. Then the second way is that for some applications, depending on what you're doing, I may need to see the whole thing. If I'm doing invoice processing, for instance, I want to be able to see the whole invoice to make sure that I can take into context how it all goes together and what's there and what might not be there. So this is the second way to see the whole document. As I click on a box over on the right, it will highlight on the document itself what I'm looking at. And then here, if there's a mistake or something needs to be corrected, I can get those things fixed. So that's the verification process, and it's very important. It's kind of the last step before we release the documents. And so once that's been verified, and we verify that it's 100% correct, then we're going to export the information out. So the images can go out as TIFFs, they can go out as searchable PDFs, regular PDFs. We can export all the data to your databases, to your workflow systems, spreadsheets, whatever it is that you need them to go to. It does connect to Microsoft SharePoint. And also we have a lot of connectors to a lot of existing document management systems. So if you're running IBM, if you've got FileNet, if you've got Documentum, AWD, those things are all in place where we can directly connect and send that information to them. And then finally, we can simultaneously send multiple formats of all that data out. So if you need part of it to go to one database system, part of it to go to another database system, your documents, the images to go somewhere else, that can all be done all at once. So that's kind of the release and the export part. All right, so at that point, that's kind of an overview of the product, how it looks, how it works. At this time, I'm going to pass the presenter over to Alan Toker, who is going to just walk us through an overview of the system, a true demo of it. Again, if you have questions, if you look on your toolbar from the Join Me session, there's a little chat box window up there. Please click on that and send us your questions. You know, I know you probably have some, and then once we get done with the demonstration, we'll come back and we'll answer the questions. So, Alan, I can see your screen. I'll let you take it from here.
All right. What we're looking at here is a demo that's set up with some examples of the different types of documents. And the specific screen you're seeing here is from what's known as a standalone installation. A distributed installation is similar, in some cases identical, but it does the same functions. So where we're picking up on this is after the load images stage. You can see the general stages that Tim talked about here: loading images, recognition, verification, and export. So I have a batch here that has been loaded into the system. And what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to tell it to recognize. And as soon as I see that start, come on. There we go. It's starting to work. I'm going to switch that to background so I can open this so we can actually see this. And normally in a distributed installation, this is not something you see. This is done in the background by the system. And there you can see it's starting to click in. So for instance, this first document is matching up to my banking application. Here's another banking one. The next one is going to be different because I've got samples here. And on this screen also, you'll see that it's showing what ready for means. What is the next stage that this particular document is going to move to? And it's showing me this confidence level information. For instance, here you see in this one called contract, it says it's ready for export. Skipped right past verification, and that's because the confidence level is 100%. And there's a setting where I said, if it's 100%, don't bother me, just export. So on a distributed application, that would go most likely just right through the system and right out to export without anybody touching it, as long as you were satisfied that if it thinks it's 100%, that you don't want to look at it. So now we can see that all these documents are finished. I've got the different types here. I'm going to start with contract, since that's the one that's 100%. And what we have is a document here, contract document. And I have two fields that have been defined. One, I want to get the contract number, so it's read this value from the field that you see on the right. And then I wanted the date, and the date is at the bottom of the document. We're now on page 4, and we've picked up the date. And because it's a fairly simple thing, and these are all printed, it's having no problems whatsoever reading it, which is why we're 100%. So there's not a whole lot to see here other than even in a simple thing like this, I can fully automate that. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to select all my documents here, and I'm going to choose Run Verification. Now, this is the one method that Tim had shown you. So here is, from those, here's all the fields that have check marks. And it's saying, what it's saying to me is, look, I think that these are all checked. And I can look quickly and say, yep, there's something in each one of them. I can just confirm them all. Then it's saying, all right, these are all the ones that I think that are not checked. You'll notice that it's not showing me anything about the document. I'm just looking at these images and saying, yep, those are all unchecked images. I can confirm those. And then it's going to move on to other things. Now I'm going to switch over at this point, say yes, so I'll save those. And now I'm going to switch to the full document verification, because this way I can actually show you things in context. They'll, I think, make more sense. So first thing we see here is, for instance, here's one of the check boxes, and it's already verified. But down here, I've got a field called zip, and you can see that two of the characters are in red. And that's because that confidence level is not 100%. And then we can see right there that the problem is that it's a 4, and it's read as a 7. So I'm going to correct that. The 6 is fine. I'm just going to hit enter. And then I'm going to say, okay, show me the next thing I need to look at. Well, it comes down to another zip code field, and it's 95040, and it read 45040. So I'll type the 9, hit enter, and move on down. This one I can see is fine. This one is supposed to be A4000. So I'll fix that and then hit enter there. So I just work as a verifier. I can just work my way down the document. Couple other features of this setup that I wanted to show you. For instance, what we have here is a image field. I've got a stamp here that I want to collect, and I've got a signature, or in this case, it looks like well, I guess it is a signature. Now, I can't verify these, but what I can say is, I want to save that as a picture. So I have in my data, I could pull that into something, and I could say that this document, yes, it was signed. Here's a snippet of the signature. So that's what those fields are doing. And then down here, we have more checkbox fields, which since I had already verified all the checkboxes, you can see that they're fine. It doesn't question anything. I'm going to move on to a different document type. Here's an invoice. And you can see here we've got a whole different style. We've got an invoice number, date, it's picking up text. That's all fairly similar to what we're doing. Now here's an interesting piece. Even though it's at the top of my data form with the total amount, if we look over here at the document, you'll see that the total is actually at the bottom of the last page. So I'm picking that up from here, and then this main part is my table. And if you also look, you'll see here that I've got it's a representation of the table. The table itself carries over across 2 pages. But as far as the data is concerned, it's just one table. It doesn't care about this intervening because it's been set up to recognize that this is one table. If it was 2 separate ones, it could be that. Then you can also see the row numbers here, 30, 31, 32, and here's my 33. So it's jumping right down to that. So this is how you can deal with documents with tables in them. Let's just save that. I have here a simple letter. Again, all I'm doing is pulling a date, a name, an address. I'm pulling some information off the letter so I can send this on to my storage system and file this information with it. And then the last one I have here is a price list, and you can see it's another table. And I'm pulling information off of the table. And you can see this one goes on for pages. And again, my table is one big table. Now, when I'm not going to take the time to go through verifying all these, but when these were all set at 100%, and this would change to export, I would release that for export. And then I want to show you another window here. This is my output location. And these are a little jumbled because I've got, these are samples and they're all different setups. But I've got one branch here that has data. This one also has some images with it. I have another branch that is just for the images or documents. So if we look here at the table, for instance, these 3 were outputting information to a spreadsheet. And let's see if I can quickly open one of these. And you can see it is just that. It's a spreadsheet. And I only have one document, so there's only one row of data. But if I'd had 100 documents, I would have a spreadsheet with 100 rows of data. There's all my headers. It's just a normal spreadsheet. I can do whatever I want with it. These are also spreadsheets. Here's the one that's pulling my signature. So my data would be in one of the spreadsheets, and if I open up this signature, you can see that's exactly what I have is an image of the signature, which I could save somewhere. Let's see, what is there anything else? Oh, and under this one, the images, this is where I told it to, along with the data, I wanted an output of the original document. So here's a PDF file that is one of our documents. So I have the data and the document to go with it, and the naming and location would be how I would tie it together. I would customize it for whatever I need. You can see this one has the contracts, the application, and it has some of the data as part of the name. This one just has the letter. So that kind of in a fast way is giving you an idea of how Abby looks when it's running. So Tim, want me to pass that back to you?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. If you leave that up for just a second, one of the things I wanted to mention here is if you see the confidence level, what that's telling me is that of the characters I read, what percentage of them I thought were correct, being the software. And you can see that the first one read 525 characters and 517 were correct. So that gives you an idea. Of course, this is a demo, and everybody knows that. So the numbers there are pretty good. What we look for in typewritten would be somewhere in the 90% range. And in handwriting, we are typically somewhere in the mid-80s when we run our customers' documents through that. For people or companies that are interested in pursuing this, we will look at some of your documents, and we will do some testing for you. We can actually show you how well it would work for your documents with your data, the kind of things that you're getting in. So, but this is kind of to me, it's very important. Just kind of gives you a good level of what all is being read and what confidence level. Okay, so I guess Alan's going to pass it back to me. We're going to open it up now. If you have a question that you'd like to ask, you can just hit *6 and unmute yourself. And please feel free to ask your questions. We have a couple here that have come in. I know Olivia's been getting, and I think she had a couple from registration. But do we have any questions from the group right now? Okay, Olivia, what's your first question?
Okay, I didn't see anything come over on the chat box, so here's some questions we got earlier. Do you have to verify the same way all the time?
Yeah, so the question I think they're asking is, we showed two different ways you can verify, by the different group verification, where you see kind of all of the same thing at once, and then the document verification. The beauty of the product is you can switch back and forth really as you're going along, depending on what job you're working on. So you don't have to pick one way and do it that way all the time. That's something that even your individual users could switch back and forth on if they chose to.
Question number 2 was, how difficult is it to set up a form?
Yeah, that's a good question. Every form is different. Alan showed you the letter, or I think it was a contract, where we were just capturing the contract number and the date. That's a half a day's worth of work or a quarter of a day's worth of work. If you're going to set up one of those invoices, that you're going to get lots of line items and tables and those kinds of things. Those could take a day or two to create those forms and get those tested. So it's kind of everything, kind of between that, depending on how much data is on the form.
And Tim, this is Alan. If I could just add to that, because I think you touched on it, but Abby is very highly customizable. So along with everything that you can select off a screen, there are many places where you can write, they call them scripts. It's little programs within it to do things or rearrange things specifically to issues that aren't covered. So obviously that takes longer, there's more work, but you can go beyond just what you see off the shelf.
Okay, and that's a great point, Alan. And I think the beauty of this product in the discussions that I've had over the last couple of years with our customers, and we have customers who have other OCR, ICR type products that they're using or trying to use. And the powerful thing about Abby is that most forms here take a day, 2, 3, at an outer edge a week to get a form up and running. And I hear stories of other systems where it's all start from scratch, customized scripting and development that is taking months to roll out one form. So this product is very, in comparison, very easy to use.
Okay, question number 3. This has to do with validation. What kind of databases can you connect to?
So the simple answer, we can connect to any ODBC compatible database, SQL, Oracle. We also can connect to, and Alan can correct me, I think you can do, if you have Excel spreadsheets and other things like that, we can connect to those as well to validate data against. All right.
Okay. All right, last question. If you started with a survey type form and wanted to add AP, do you need a new server and install?
So I think the question is, if I started doing one thing in one department and wanted to do something different from another department, do I have to kind of start over? And the answer is no. I mean, the system, once you get it installed at your place on your server, you could share that amongst multiple departments, and you can grow that system, really as much as you needed to. And if you got significantly more volume through the system, you may have to increase your server size or some things like that. But no, you would not have to start over with another system.
I think that's all the questions we have that came across email.
Any other questions from folks in the audience? Okay, well, thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate your time. We know how valuable it is. If you have any questions, please let Olivia know. She will send out a link to a recording of this once we're done here today so that you can listen to it. Or if you have other folks in your organization who may be interested, please feel free to pass that along. And again, thank you for your time. Have a good afternoon.
Bye.